Hi there. My name's Rachel, and I work at the Virginia Museum of History and Culture. Today, we're going to be talking about famous faces of the suffrage movement. While you watch this video, you can also follow along with your worksheet. Are you ready to get started? Let's go. Every 4 years, the country comes together in November to vote for President of the United States. Voting is a way for communities to say who they think should lead the country, and whoever gets the most votes wins. Now, who do you think can vote in 2020? Yeah, absolutely. Legal U.S. citizens who are over the age of 18 years old are able to vote. But that hasn't always been the case. In fact, for a long time, Black men weren't able to vote. Women weren't able to vote until 1920. Hey, that's 100 years ago. 2020 is a really exciting time to look back at 100 years of women being able to vote and being good citizens. Now, before we dive in, you might have heard me use a word earlier that you weren't familiar with, and that word is suffrage. To figure out the definition of the word suffrage, let's take a look at this sign right here. It says, "Let women vote." And it was created by the National Women's Suffrage Association. So hey, there's that word again, suffrage. So the word suffrage means the right to vote. And a suffragist is someone who supported women's right to vote. And a suffragist could be a man or it could be a woman. So now that we know what that word means, let's see how these suffragists accomplished their goal of getting American women the right to vote. It took a long time for women to be able to vote. There were some people who thought that women weren't smart enough to vote, but we know that's not the case. Today, we're going to learn about two suffragists from Richmond, Virginia, and how they helped get women the right to vote. But first, let's start off by figuring out how good citizens helped the suffrage movement. And we're going to do that by figuring out what a good citizen is. So on your worksheet, you have a list of characteristics, just like these. You can go ahead and circle the words that are helpful and cross out or draw a line through the words that aren't. You can pause your video while you complete these instructions. You did a great job figuring out how good citizens act. Now let's have a little fun figuring out how suffragists move. Being a good citizen isn't always easy. Sometimes the suffragists would go to protests or large gatherings with a group of people to show that they were unhappy about not having the right to vote. Before they could gather together, though, they would need to practice a few key things, and I think we should practice those together. So the first thing that we need to do is have our listening ears ready. When suffragists would go to protest, they would often hear speeches from really important people. So they would need to have their ears ready to listen to these new ideas. Now, can you all show me where your listening ears are? Nice job. And look, I've got my listening ears on too. Now for this next part, we're going to need to stand up. So can you all do that with me? All right, I'm going to push my chair back so I don't run into it. And we are going to come back here and we are going to stand tall and proud. Because when suffragists would go to protest, they would hear speeches, but they would also go on marches. So they would need to have good posture. Show me your good posture. Nice job. They would also have their walking feet ready. So can you all walk in place with me? Very nice. Now the next thing we need to do is hold a sign. And typically their signs might say things like votes for women. So we have our listening ears ready. Our walking feet are on. We have our sign. So now you're going to repeat after me. Votes for women. Votes for women. votes for women. Hey, you all did an excellent job. Now let's all take a seat together. So now we have had a little bit of fun figuring out why voting was important, what good citizens do, and how to move like a suffragist. I think we're ready to start talking about some famous faces in Richmond, Virginia. Like we've said, a suffragist is someone who wanted to help women get the right to vote. For today's program, we're focusing on two suffragists from Richmond, Virginia, who lived in Virginia in the early 1900s. This first famous face that we will focus on is a woman named Maggie Walker, who you can see on your screen. So Maggie Walker was born and raised in Richmond. And when Maggie was alive, there were many white people who treated Black people differently just based on the color of their skin. That's called discrimination. There were even white people who owned businesses who wouldn't let Black people inside. Maggie thought that that was unfair, and she was correct. Those white business owners were not being good citizens because they were not being respectful towards their neighbors and towards their community. So Maggie saw there was a problem for her community, and because she's a good citizen, she decided that she wanted to help her community to solve that problem. To do that, she opened up a bank. Maggie Walker opened up St. Luke's Penny Saving Bank, and you can see a postcard of it on your screen. We actually have that postcard in our collection here at the VMHC. Now, St. Luke's is a really special bank because it was a bank for Black people. So Maggie wanted to make sure that Black people were able to save money, something they weren't able to do with white businesses. But in addition to being a business owner, Maggie also thought that it was unfair that Black women weren't able to vote. So she became a suffragist. Maggie Walker wanted to make sure that Black voices were being heard by the leaders of Richmond, Virginia, and the United States of America. Now that we've learned a little bit about her, we're going to complete the next part of our worksheet, and you can see that on the screen. So first, you are going to list 3 of Maggie Walker's helpful traits. And if you need help coming up with ideas for this section, go back to the first list that we talked about. You're also going to complete this fill-in-the-blank question right down below. You can go ahead and pause the video while you complete those instructions. Excellent job. Let's go back to thinking about a good citizen. We know that Maggie Walker is a good citizen because she opened up a bank and she became a suffragist. What can you do to help your community? Pause the video while you answer that question. Right now, it's really important that we take care of our community. Maybe you can do things like making a mask for a friend or writing a letter for a family member or a neighbor that you don't see as much. As members of a community, it's our responsibility to make sure that we're taking care of each other. Now, things were really tough for Maggie Walker. People treated her poorly because she was both a woman and she was Black. She overcame a lot because she felt that it was her responsibility to help her community and to help Black Richmonders succeed in life. In another part of Richmond, a white woman named Adele Clark also became a suffragist. She was an artist and a member of the Equal Suffrage League of Virginia. So here we have Adele right here in this box. And if we come over to this picture, we see Adele again with the Equal Suffrage League of Virginia. Now, this was an organization that wanted to pass a law that allowed all women to vote. So Adele worked with a large group of people. Why might it be helpful to work in a group when everyone has the same goal? Yeah, absolutely. When you have more people working together, you have more ideas. 2 heads are better than 1, right? So that's an advantage of working with a large group of people. But that's not always the easiest thing to do. Can you think of some things that might make it difficult about working with a large group of people? Sometimes people disagree about the best way to accomplish a goal. And when that happens, people have to make a compromise. Now, compromise is when someone gives up something so that the entire group can succeed. In this case, the Equal Suffrage League of Virginia had people who disagreed over the best way to get women their rights to vote. Some people thought they should be patient and wait for each individual state to decide when women could vote. Other people wanted to vote now, and they wanted the United States government to say that all women could vote. Well, some people had to make a compromise, and eventually in the year 1920, the United States Constitution added an amendment, or a change, that allowed American women the right to vote. Now that we've talked a little bit about Adele, let's complete the next part of your worksheet. So you are going to again list 3 helpful traits, this time about Adele Clark. Then you're going to come down here and fill out this fill in the blank question. And you can pause the video while you complete those instructions. You're doing a great job of thinking of the ways that people can be good citizens. But besides character traits, there are also actions that people can take to be good citizens, like voting, for example. Now, why do you think it's important that all people in a group or a community vote? You can pause the video while you think about that question. Voting on election day isn't always easy. Sometimes people have to wake up really early or stand in long lines. Sometimes people can vote early or vote through the mail. No matter how they do it, though, voting is a responsibility. It's up to American citizens to cast their votes and have their voices heard by the government. Now, not all members of a community or of a group are going to vote the same way. However, everyone deserves a say in who creates the laws that affect them. You did an excellent job today. We learned that 100 years ago, people called suffragists helped make a change that allowed American women to vote. We also talked about why voting was important and why voting is a part of being a good citizen. We also learned how women like Maggie Walker and Adele Clark were responsible, and they were trustworthy, and they helped their communities. Now, we can remember these women in a variety of ways. Adele Clark, for example, has a statue down at the Virginia Women's Monument, which opened up here in Richmond in 2019. Maggie Walker is supposed to have a statue down here too. Hers hasn't been built yet. But not to worry, friends. She already has one. Maggie Walker also has a statue in Jackson Ward, the same neighborhood that she used to live in. It's easy for us to imagine that these women were always seen as good citizens. But that's not the case. In fact, some people doubted Maggie Walker and Adele Clark because they were women. Maggie also faced racism because she was both a woman and she was Black. Now, the right thing to do hasn't always been obvious. It takes really brave people to stand up and say when something isn't right. The right to vote hasn't always been guaranteed for Black people or for women. A lot of people worked hard to give those groups, as well as all Americans, their right to vote. It's up to us as good citizens to look back and recognize the hard work that went into us getting our rights. I hope today's video inspired you a little bit and taught you some more about famous faces of the suffrage movement. Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to learn more, you can come see us in person. You can also visit us online by asking an adult to visit virginiahistory.org. Well, my name's Rachel, and thanks for hanging out with me today. See you soon.